Welcome, everybody. We're so delighted to have you with us on LifeWave now tonight. It's an exciting night. As all of you know, we are going to be talking with David Schmidt, our beloved leader and the most amazing inventor in the world, as far as most of us are concerned. And it's not easy to get David's time these days. So we want to let you know right up front, we may run a little bit longer than usual. As long as the discussion is rolling along, we will keep chatting with David. And if you have to go, don't worry, because you'll be getting a video tomorrow. You'll be getting a link to this whole thing. It's recorded, so you'll be able to use it to share with others and for whatever purposes you may want. So right now, let me see if my co-host, Jim Caldwell, is here. Are you there?
Of course I'm here. I'm listening to your every word. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you on board. You know, before we just came on, we had north of 1,400 registrants for this particular webinar. So that's a terrific amount of folks that want to jump on and see what's going on. As of course, all 1,400 usually don't show up. However, in this particular broadcast tonight, we're limited to 1,000 folks. So sure hope you all get in. And like Paula just said, in the next day or two, we'll definitely have this recording, put it up on YouTube in the LifeWave section where it says LifeWave Now. So you'll be able to, folks that miss, if they can't get in, and certainly as you share this out with others, you'll be sure to want to let them experience what this is going to be. And Paula, look, you know, I must tell you folks, the feedback that we get from the field on Paula Shaw and her role and the energy she's bringing to this broadcast and to what we're doing as we communicate and build community has been terrific. So Paula, I'm going to hand it back to you. Let's go for it. Have some fun, because it's time. I think we need to bring David Schmidt on, but you have some words, I think, you'd like to throw out there first.
I do. I just want to give our viewers a little bit of insight into this man, because like you, Jim, I've been lucky enough to know him personally and to get to interview him several times on my radio show. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize David Schmidt is not just a genius inventor. He's not the man who's created this product line that we're all in love with. He's a really beautiful human being. He is a good guy. He is a generous guy. Yes, he went to Pace University and he has degrees in biology and information management systems, and he's got all of those credentials. But I think the most important thing that we hope you will see as we interview David tonight is that David Schmidt is not just our leader, he's our guy. He's a really great guy. Come and join us, David. I know I'm probably embarrassing you to death, but please join us.
A little bit. I was going to maybe not start my video and just do it as under the black curtain there. So that was very nice, Paula. Thank you very much. And Happy New Year to you, by the way.
Thank you. And to you and to everybody, by the way. New year, new decade. What an exciting time. And I think it's going to be a history-making decade for this company for sure. So before we get into anything else, David, I want to give you a little heads up. I've talked to several people who are watching tonight. Many people really actually want to use this interview as something to share with others who might be interested in the company, because you are a super important part of this company. So I want to take a cue from Julie Andrews' playbook and say, let's start at the very beginning.
Well, I love Julie Andrews, and you know, Sound of Music is one of my favorite movies of all time. So you picked a good one.
Oh, good. So here's my burning question, David. What kind of a kid were you? Were you a nerd like Bill Gates? Were you kind of an oddball like Einstein? Were you the kid who was setting off rockets in the backyard? What were you like?
I was a little bit of all of those things. I was a nerd. I was an oddball. I was setting off rockets in my backyard. My best friend and I, as a matter of fact, we used to love to build rockets, and then a couple of times we shot them at our neighbors' houses, which didn't make our parents too happy. But yeah, you know, we were building rockets all the time, doing experiments, taking things apart. We would go into our parents' workshops and take power tools and ovens and things like that and take them apart and try to see if we could get them back together again. One year my brother got a video game. Back then it was, you know, very simple electronics, and it was those Pong video games. And I remember taking that apart and trying to figure out how the circuitry worked. So yeah, I mean, I did all of those things, and basically it was just in the spirit of exploring and wanting to learn how the world around me was working. There was a naturalist in Austria by the name of Victor Schauberger, and he wrote a book called Nature Was My Teacher. And, you know, this had an impact on me in that if we want to really understand the world around us, we look to God, we look to nature, because that's where we're going to find the answers. Mm-hmm. And that quickly led me into the field of biomimetics, meaning that if we want to create technology that's good for human beings, that's good for the environment, good for our planet, we want to mimic nature. And that's one of the things that we've done here with LifeWave, is we are mimicking the way the human body heals, but it just breaks down over time. And the body uses light. So if we can have a technology that works with the body and uses the body's own code and the body's own system, we can have new technology that can provide healing and support healing in a very, very profound way.
Was there any particular incident or something that happened in your life that really motivated this interest that you have in the body and in healing?
Oh, there were many things that happened along the way, many things. And, you know, we don't have time for all of them. But I would say there was two things that really stand out relative to this. One was when I was about 8 years old or so, my parents took me to the laboratory of Thomas Edison. I grew up in New Jersey, and Thomas Edison's lab was not too far from where I lived. So we went there, I saw that, and when I came home, I knew that I wanted to be an inventor. And then a number of years after that, I was maybe about 15 years old, I was watching the Merv Griffin show, and there was a doctor on, Dirk Pearson, and he wrote a book called Life Extension, which was several hundred pages long. And I sat there and I listened to him talking about ways to extend lifespan and keep people younger longer. And so I bought the book, I read it front to back many times. And I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to create technology so people can live longer and stay younger. Although I have to admit, there was some self-preservation there. There was a lot of self-interest, and I really didn't want to age. So it probably started with that.
Well, what's of course amazing is that, you know, think about it, you have the skill sets to be able to actually do something to affect your body and help you feel younger next year. You actually were able to go to work on yourself, and then think about how you've been able to share this technology with now hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, it is fair to say that we have achieved things in the field of biology, in the field of regeneration, that has not been achieved anyplace else. And we have the data to support that. You know, Jim knows a little bit more than the outside world on this. And there's been many times that we have popped the champagne cork because we have achieved a first. And we're really looking forward to sharing all of that someday. You know, at the appropriate time. But yeah, we've really achieved some remarkable, groundbreaking things here relative to anti-aging, age reversal, and regenerative science.
You know, Paula, one second. Sorry. David, come a little closer to the microphone, kind of push your body forward a little bit, because we have a few comments of folks that are saying they can't hear you as well as they'd like to. Okay. So if you come a little closer to the mic, let's go for that. Paula, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, darn. Now I forgot where I was going. Well, first of all, I want to say, David, as somebody else who's concerned with vanity, I want to thank you for whatever sacrifices you have made. I mean, recently I sent out an email talking about LifeWave products and saying that I had my 69th birthday this year. And
Wow.
I must have had 20 people say, I want to order whatever that stuff is.
Wow. You definitely do not look your age.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would not have guessed that.
And I seriously mean, thank you.
Yeah.
I was one of the early people, the early adapters, shall we say, who got the X39. And it's amazing. It's just plain amazing. And it's been such a gift from my parents who are in their 90s and who are doing great, thinking clearly, moving easily. It's an amazing product.
Awesome. Thank you.
I was going to ask you something about how it all began, but now I've talked about X39. So what do you think? Do you want to share a little bit about how did LifeWave start? And then maybe we can talk about your big news.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of big news that I want to get into tonight. And, you know, that is a long story about getting started with it. But just the very, very short answer to that is I was developing survival equipment for the Navy. This is going back into the 90s. And I was looking to develop new technology for the crew of people on a mini sub. And the idea is, how can we keep them alive longer? And the crew is these were Navy SEALs, how can they stay awake for a long time without having to use amphetamines and caffeine? And so I began to do an investigation of is there a natural way that we can increase energy in the body without having to resort to drugs. And after about 3 years of research, I came up with the first LifeWave prototype, which was the energy patch. And then, of course, started LifeWave. So it's been an amazing journey, really, really an amazing, life-changing journey. And it's 20 years later now, just can't believe where we are and how bright the future is.
And of course, what's fantastic is that, and we've talked about it as a company, you know, we're just getting started. I mean, think about it. What came along in X39 after about 8 or 9 fantastic products literally was a game changer. And so let's jump into it, David, because you do have some exciting news that you're going to fully unveil in Vegas. But you said, let's take a little moment and help people understand what really is happening here with this amazing product in X39. So where do you want to start? Just you got the floor and kind of take us through it.
Yeah, so lots to talk about here. So first thing is, I think what I'd want everyone to know is up to this point, we have completed 7 clinical studies on X39. There are 4 new clinical studies that are starting. And I think by the time we finish out the year, we're going to be 15, 16 finished clinical studies. By the way, the legal requirement in the United States is to have 2 clinical studies. So part of this is, we want to meet our legal burden in marketing products. But the other thing is, the more that we do studies, the more we learn, the more claims we can make to support our marketing. And then, of course, we can develop new products based on that. And I would say, X39, it's probably going to be our superstar product for many, many years to come, but there is new products coming down the road. But, talking about X39 now, we've learned some things this past year that we're going to be sharing in Las Vegas in great detail that our members don't really know about today. And so it means that members are getting benefits that they're not even aware of. So let's start to break some of this down. The first thing is we've been working with Dr. Melinda Connor for many years. And Dr. Melinda Connor, as you know, Jim and Paula, she had just a spectacular presentation last year. So by popular demand, she's coming back to Vegas. And she's going to be sharing with our audience a number of the clinical studies she's been doing over the past year. So one of them, which is about 50 people, is a clinical study that's looking at metabolism. And one of the things that I would want our members and new folks that are joining us today or just recently in LifeWave is that one of the really important things about X39 is that it improves the metabolism in some very, very important ways. So we think about this is, you know, what is X39 doing? It's activating the stem cells, but it's so much more than that. One of the first things that needs to happen in the process of repairing the body is the body has to have energy. And this starts in a place in the cell called the mitochondria. It's like the engine or the powerhouse of the cell. And one of the remarkable things about X39 is that normally as people age, they produce less and less energy. And by the time, if anyone that's on here that's over the age of 50 and hasn't used our products, they know that. They start depending on coffee or some type of stimulant. They need to sleep more. They get a lull in the afternoon. And this is all because the area of the cell that makes energy begins to decline in its ability to do that. Well, one of the remarkable things that we've seen in our clinical studies is X39 can reverse that process. In other words, it gets the cell to produce more energy. And this is why many people, the very first day of using X39, they say, wow, I went through the day, I had more energy, I didn't get tired, I really feel great. That's what's going on. And, we've got data to support that from these studies. We also show in this metabolism data, usually when you think about this, when somebody takes caffeine, what happens? They take caffeine, they take a Red Bull, and then they get this zing of energy, and then all of a sudden they crash, right? And now they get tired, right? So that's the crash from taking these energy drinks. That doesn't happen with X39. Actually, the opposite happens. So what we saw in our metabolism data is that X39 actually reduces the stress on the cell. So unlike an energy drink, which gives you energy and then you crash, not only does X39 give you energy, but it actually has the opposite effect of caffeine. It will reduce the stress on the cell. That means you get better antioxidant production. And of course, when you have less stress, you don't age as quickly. So those are some of the really exciting things that are coming out of some of these studies. So before I go on to the next things, where actually I think are even more exciting, I'll just stop there for just a second.
Well, it is interesting when you talk about, because, energy enhancer, right? So that was something that you developed first, and that was focused on this dynamic that you just described. But I think you've told me before that the energy enhancer focuses on only a part of the process. Is that correct? So help us understand the difference, if you can, between what X39 is doing versus the energy enhancer, for instance.
Yeah. So this would get into some of the chemistry and it'd be a little bit technical. But anyway, to keep things simple, the premise behind energy enhancer was to increase fat burning, which is called beta oxidation in the cell. And you have a number of entry and exit points for energy and energy carrying molecules in the cell. So without dragging into the details on that, the way that X39 is coming at it is from a completely different way. In other words, energy enhancer is telling the cell, hey, I want you to produce more energy, and I want you to get that energy from fat, right? And that's great. But what X39 does is X39 goes in and says, hey, what I want you to do is act like you're a younger cell and make energy the way that you did when you were younger. So it's a completely different way of getting there. And it's a better way because, of course, we can get our cells to act like young, healthy cells. As it turns out, there's a whole host of benefits to doing that.
I'd say.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, I'm on the edge of my seat, David. Let's hear some more of what you're sharing tonight.
Okay, well, let's get to one that we've held off talking to our members about for quite a long time. It's on the playlist. This would be the most popular request, right? That's what that would be in radio terms now. And that is, well, where is your blood data that you're elevating copper peptide? And we've been withholding that because the scientist that's been involved in this wants to publish the data in a very prestigious scientific journal. And so there's some restrictions around how we might do this. So what we decided to do was release the pilot data, and we're going to get the double-blind study published. But we've been working on this now for 2 years. We've spent $50,000 just in developing the testing methods to do this. Not only that doesn't even include the clinical study costs. So, and that's because there's no place that you can go to test for these things. We had to develop our own methodologies with a scientist and pharmacologist. But anyway, what we claim is that we elevate copper peptide with X39, but that's only part of the story, as it turns out. There are 2 different molecules involved. One is called GHK, and the other is called GHK-Cu. So copper peptide is GHK-Cu, meaning there's a peptide that attaches to copper, but there's another peptide called GHK, which is the precursor. Well, anyway, why is this all important? Well, simply, we did blood tests and urine tests, and we found that X39 is elevating both GHK and GHK-Cu. And the reason why this is important is because GHK has the ability to reset genes in the body to a younger, healthier state. Oh, wow. Copper peptide has that ability too, but anyway, copper peptide has a whole other set of health benefits. So we were able to do these new studies and look at exactly what happens right after you place on the X39 patch. What happens in the first 24 hours? What happens in the first week? And we see statistically that there are increases in these peptides just within the very first 24 hours, and of course within the first week of use. Now, the other thing, and you'll have to come to the conference to get the rest of this information, because I do want to plug that a little bit. But some of the things that we saw with this were you had people, majority of people were falling in the range of a 40% to 50% increase in this peptide. And this is quite significant.
A very short period of time, right? A very short period of time.
Oh, 24 hours.
Crazy.
24 hours, yeah, to 7 days. And this is significant because what we're doing now is we're correlating this to age reversal. So in other words, we're going to say, well, let's say you're 60 and you get this increase in copper peptide. Now you've got the copper peptide of someone in your 30s, right? So we're looking at correlating those two. But the other thing that was super interesting about this is we had people, you put them in what's called the outlier group, but we had people that were actually getting over 300% increases in copper peptide their very first 7 days. So, you know, these would be people that, you know, they're starting out over the age of 60, and now all of a sudden they've got the copper peptide levels of a 20-year-old. So wow. There's some very important things that distinguish these people from the people that hit the averages. And we're going to be talking about that in Las Vegas.
Well, and let me, sorry, Paul, let me just throw something in. So is this, are you treading upon new turf? Is this a new, what do you want to call it? Has this ever been achieved before? Is this new territory that even the scientists with you working out, well, how do we even measure GHK? I mean, it feels like not too many people have been here before. Is that true?
No one's been here before, Jim. You know, I've had a dialogue with Dr. Lauren Picard, who discovered copper peptide. First thing is I say, this man needs a Nobel Prize. You know, I don't say that lightly. He's been doing this for 45 years. He's set and established the groundbreaking science by discovering copper peptide and dedicating his life to proving why we should be concerned with this and why everybody should be elevating it. But the tool that Dr. Picard lacked was the ability to keep sustained levels of copper peptide, and that's what we have with the X39. I wasn't going to bring this up tonight, and as you know, this is highly confidential, but we just finished a 6-month study of X39, and I'm not going to share the results of that because we're not ready to release that yet. But basically, we are showing results from 6 months of use of X39 that are absolutely extraordinary. So basically, we show the longer that you use it, the better the results that you get. And I think that's the most I'd want to say about it now. So yes, because the X39 patch has never been available before, the ability to study the biological effects on the human body over a sustained period of time has never been available before, not even to Dr. Picard.
Wow.
David, I'm wondering, because I think a lot of us who are distributors hear from some people that, whoa, the first day they experience something different with X39, like maybe increased energy. And then for some people, it takes longer, So is there a way to make X39 more efficient by what we eat or how we live or any of that? Or is it just